Hello, we have a question from section 1.4, problem number 18. Actually, I'm not doing exactly 18. I'm doing a problem like 18, so that's why it says 18 with an asterisk beside it. These types of problems here in this little section of this section here is solving equations in radical form. And this particular one I want to do is got the square root of 2x plus 3 equal to x. In class, I gave you guys a series of steps, like I call it a recipe. So you probably hear me say recipe quite often this semester. And but a recipe is basically a guideline of what you do first step, and then the next step, and the next step, just like a recipe. And anyway, so what we're going to do is try to solve this equation for x. The first step is to isolate a radical. Now, when I say a radical, that means there could be more than one, but for the most part, for you guys, you only have one. So there could be 2 or 3 radicals, but luckily this problem only has one. So what we do is we isolate it, and it already is isolated. And then at that point, we take the root, and it's a square root, even though there's no number there, it's understood to be square root. So we take that number, and that's our power of both sides. So what we're going to do is we're going to square both sides, or take to the second power both sides. And what that does to the left-hand side, it eliminates the radical. So if it was a cube root, you would cube both sides. If it's a fourth root, you would take the fourth power both sides. And so here we square both sides, and what that does, it eliminates your radical. It leaves you with the number inside, or the expression in your inside in this case. So 2x plus 3. And by the way, the 2x plus 3, the number inside the radical, is called a radicand. So a radicand. And the radicand in this case is 2x plus 3. And then at this point, when I square the left side, you remember, as it's always been, you do the same thing to the other side. So in this case, it's just x squared. What comes from that is a quadratic equation. So the good news is no more radicals. The bad news is now you got a quadratic equation that you have to solve for. But luckily for us, earlier in 1.2, we learned how to solve these types of problems. And it's quadratic, and so you set it equal to 0. So it's x squared minus 2x plus 3. Oh, actually, it's a minus 3 because when I bring it to the right side, it becomes minus. And that's a common mistake a lot of people make, actually. When they bring something over, they just leave the same sign. And so you got to make sure if you bring 2x over, it's a minus 2x. When you make a plus 3 over, it'll be a minus 3. And that does factor. So you get x plus 1 times x minus 3. So that is just a reverse FOIL problem. So I have x plus 1 times x minus 3 equal to 0. So solving each of these independently, you get x equals negative 1 on this one, and x equals 3 on that one. And so what you'll need to do is you'll need to check to see if they work or not. They may work and they may not. And a lot of people have a false impression. Just because the number is negative, that means it's disallowed. And just because the number is positive, that means it is allowed. And that's false thinking. You have to test both of them, whether plus or minus, because sometimes negative numbers do work and sometimes positive numbers don't work. So we're going to try the negative 1. I don't think we'll have that problem here. So here was the original problem. So I'm going to erase that back off. That's what I had originally before I squared both sides. And I'm going to put negative 1 in. So 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, plus 3 is 1, and the square root of 1 is 1. But 1 does not equal the x, in this case negative 1. So 1 equals negative 1. That's false. So we throw that one out. Now, if the 3 doesn't work either, then we'd have no solution. But if it does work, then that's my answer. That's my only answer to this problem. So we'll try the 3. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 3 is 9. The square root of 9 is 3, and that does equal x in this case, which is 3. So 3 is the solution. So there's basically... let me run through the system again. Okay, you just have to, first of all, isolate the square root, take the radical, and look inside what the root is. In this case, it's a square root. You square both sides in this case, simplify it out, determine whether it's linear or quadratic. That's probably going to be your 2 choices. In this case, it's quadratic, so you set it equal to 0, and for the most part, they will factor, and this one does. You test both numbers into the original equation. If they do work, you keep it. If they don't work, you discard it. And that's basically it. That's all there is to it. So I will be doing another problem in 1.4 shortly from, I think, in the 40s. Okay. Thank you.